Those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. I think I'm entitled. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, I suggest you pick up a weapon and stand a post. Who's gonna do it? You? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? Deep down in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall. I have neither the time nor the inclination to explain myself to a man who rises and sleeps under the blanket of the very freedom that I provide, and then questions the manner in which I provide it. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you are entitled to.
It's useless.
I'm working on time.
Penny X.
Welcome back to Left in the Dark, a channel dedicated to exposing the left's hypocrisy, shining a light on governmental deep state corruption, and following all things President Donald J. Trump. Buckle up, folks, because this week was filled with some serious drama, trade deals, and some serious international shade throwing. If you're new here, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it.
You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that, but I can tell you the other side isn't exactly in love with, him either. So it's not a question of alignment. I'm aligned with the world.
Folks, what we witnessed in the meeting in the Oval Office between President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky on Friday, was nothing short of miraculous. What you witnessed was the end of an era in which globalist elite douchebags in Davos, Switzerland, warhawks in Congress, and warmongers among the highest ranks of our corrupt intelligence agencies have pushed for pointless and never-ending wars, all to make a profit. They never counted on Donald Trump surviving his assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania on July 13th, 2024. And the goal was to keep pushing money over to Ukraine, to keep receiving kickbacks, and to destroy the American economy. But they failed. So take a look at what President Donald Trump and J.D. Vance had to say to Mr. Zelensky, and then we'll talk about it. Take a listen.
I want to see if we can get this thing done. You want me to be tough? I could be tougher than any human being you've ever seen. I'd be so tough. But you're never going to get a deal that way, so that's the way it goes. All right, one more question.
I will respond to this. So look, for 4 years in the United States of America, we had a president who stood up at press conferences and talked tough about Vladimir Putin, and then Putin invaded Ukraine and destroyed a significant chunk of the country. The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy. We tried the pathway of Joe Biden of thumping our chest and pretending that the President of the United States' words mattered more than the President of the United States' actions. What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
And he's exactly right. This idea that Joe Biden was nothing less than a globalist puppet who was influenced by some of the most corrupt members of the US government and some of the most corrupt politicians all over the world is absolutely laughable. The fact of the matter is that this war was not started by Russia. This war was started by NATO and the United States of America, continuing to push NATO expansion further eastward and threatening the sovereignty of Russia. This is nothing less than the equivalent of a foreign adversarial military coalition deciding that they're just going to place nuclear weapon stockpiles and intercontinental ballistic missiles at our southern border or in Canada. You can almost guarantee that the United States, in the event of that happening, would immediately invade and crush the opposition, because that's what would be necessary in order to protect your country's sovereignty. Now, later on in this meeting, things got a little heated. Let's take a look at that exchange.
Of the war, you're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's back to you, far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Needless to say, diplomatic negotiations that take part in back rooms away from the cameras are not always pretty, and this is a good glimpse into what those negotiations look like. Now, with that being said, what Zelensky was emboldened to do was to take that conversation from behind closed doors and try and manipulate the media and manipulate the American electorate to sympathize with his cause. But what he failed to realize is that now that we're aware of why this war and why Russia's aggression even began in the first place, he's arguing to keep us in the business of funneling money over there to continue this war. He kept saying throughout the negotiations that he wanted security guarantees. Well, the security guarantee is that the U.S. is involved. When he mentioned earlier in the conversation that Russia in 2014 invaded eastern parts of Ukraine and nobody did anything about it, that's because President Obama made no effort to stop Russia invading. Obama was a weak leader who had no interest in litigating these issues and fighting on behalf of Ukraine. What President Trump is proposing is that, yes, we want to support Ukraine, but we do not want to support them in their war effort. We want to support a peace deal, one that would involve the U.S. and its executives into bringing an end to this war in exchange for precious metals and minerals that Ukraine has to offer, while at the same time keeping Russia at bay. See, the most important thing to understand about this entire transaction is that this benefits Ukraine the most. By having American companies actively mining for these precious metals and rare earth minerals in Ukraine is almost better than having American troops in Ukraine. Why? Well, because if Russia decides that they're going to invade Ukraine, it automatically involves U.S. personnel. And guess what? If Russia decides to invade Ukraine with Americans on its soil and touches a single hair on an American's head, that directly involves military action with the United States. And Russia does not want that. Russia wants to be left alone. If Russia truly wanted to annex Europe, they could easily do it, just like they did nearly a century ago.
Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
This was the single biggest mistake that Zelensky made during this meeting. He directly threatened our country. Now, what he meant by that threat, whether it was direct or indirect, is nonetheless a threat. You don't come onto American soil and declare that we are going to, quote, feel it if we don't help you. This is your war. This war was started by the people that you're taking orders from. And the fact that we're even involved in these negotiations to begin with is a testament to our overall empathy to the impact of your country. Now, with that being said, I don't see how this resolves itself without U.S. involvement. And the best option for Zelensky right now is to get down on his knees and beg President Trump for another chance. Now, Zelensky was emboldened prior to this meeting by U.S. Congress personnel and retired foreign policy advisors that used to be involved in our foreign relations. This is in direct violation of the Logan Act, and these people should be investigated. But prior to this meeting, Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Amy Klobuchar, a Republican and a Democrat, just kind of goes to show you this whole uniparty dynamic in which they band together to influence foreign policy decisions made overseas so that they can then sign the legislation that allows us to send hundreds of billions of dollars overseas, and then they take kickbacks from those countries' leaders. It's a giant money laundering scheme that only benefits the wealthy, that only benefits our members of Congress, corrupt deep state actors in our executive branch, and benefits the global elites in Davos, along with military contracting companies. You and I don't benefit. We just pay the bill.
If you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting killed.
Of course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a ceasefire.
But I said to you,
I want a ceasefire.
With guarantees.
Because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't with me.
For you what
that wasn't with me. That was with a guy named Biden who was not a smart person. That was with Obama.
It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards. It's going to be a tough deal to make, because the attitudes have to change.
So what happens next is the leaders in Ukraine are going to get together and decide whether or not Zelensky is going to be able to come back over here and make negotiations, or if they're going to send their military executives to come over here and make the negotiations. Regardless of what decision is made overall, Ukraine is going to have to agree to some sort of agreement involving the US, because without us, there's no incentive for Russia to stop its invasion. After all of this, it's safe to say that with the lopsided contributions of the European Union to the NATO overall spending budget, it's safe to say that America should, at the very least, withdraw from the NATO treaty. These reckless decisions made on behalf of the US to fund foreign wars all over the world is out of control and needs to come to an end. If these people want to start wars, they need to be able to pay for their own wars. Just to put it into perspective before we move on, the US pays a total of $860 billion in contributions to NATO, while the entire European Union and the rest of the NATO allies contribute just $370.18 billion. And you can do the math. Europe is ripping us off, and they have been since the very beginning. And I think that it's high time for the US to engage in partnerships with other world superpowers, as opposed to backing corrupt governments that try to start wars against people that we would otherwise have zero conflict with, including Russia. I want the US to get along with everyone. And sometimes that might seem impossible, but the closer we get to that, the better off our nation is, and the more money stays in the US American taxpayers' pocket. Moving on. So earlier this week, the Jeffrey Epstein files were released in a botched effort to signal transparency. The Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, said in a statement on Wednesday night that the Jeffrey Epstein files would be released by the end of Thursday.
Because you said last week that you have the Epstein files on your desk. When can we see them, and what's taking so long to release them?
I do. Jesse, there are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims, 200. So we have well over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released by my office.
Judging from that clip, it seems very apparent that she had seen evidence regarding Jeffrey Epstein's exploits in engaging in a worldwide sexual extortion operation headed by U.S. intelligence agencies and intelligence agencies from all over the world in an effort to blackmail high-profile politicians, celebrities, and deep state actors into carrying out the dirty deeds of said corrupt intelligence agencies. So from what I've gathered over doing research this past week, the FBI out of the Southern District of New York shielded the pertinent documents necessary to expose the Jeffrey Epstein operation. Now, whether AG Pam Bondi knew about this or not, I'm not quite sure. I don't know why these people are so well protected. It seems almost supernaturally evil that they've gotten away with it at all, and have gotten away with it for so very long without any intervention by the US government. We are talking about the largest human sex trafficking operation in world history. Now, AG Pam Bondi did release a letter to the new director of the FBI, Kash Patel, stating that the FBI out of the Southern District of New York was in fact shielding documents and had blatantly lied to her about the FBI's findings. This is what the letter looked like. The FBI is as corrupt as all get out. There is no saving the FBI. And I understand that some of the lower level agents within the organization are probably wanting to do the right thing. But the problem is there are career bureaucrats within the FBI, including some of its top leadership, that are actively trying to suppress evidence and make this new administration look incompetent. And judging by the results of this latest release, it appears that they succeeded. This is the first win that the deep state has had since November 5th, and hopefully this this administration can get out in front of it. But the sheer amount of corruption, conspiracy, and international intelligence agency involvement is almost certainly too much for this one administration to be able to thoroughly investigate and prosecute. Meaning that if our government is ever going to reach a true level of transparency, these processes are going to extend well beyond this administration and well after Donald Trump has left office. The massive, massive scale of criminality involved in our US government is astronomical. And it is the single biggest reason that no one has been able to defeat it, because it is just simply too large. Now, I have high hopes for this administration, and I have high hopes for AG Pam Bondi, as well as FBI Director Kash Patel, as well as the Deputy Director Dan Bongino. But these are just three people in a massive, massive web of lies. And in order to sift through it, they're going to have to fire and prosecute many of these deep state actors. And it seems that that is going to be the case moving forward. New FBI Director Kash Patel had this to say on his Twitter earlier this week. And so what happens now? Hopefully the FBI, along with the CIA and John Radcliffe heading the table, are able to root out these deep state actors who are actively working to shield criminals, pederasts, child sex traffickers, and some of the most evil people you could ever imagine that have ever existed in the history of the world. And hopefully they're able to root these people out and get rid of them and prosecute them and put them in prison. And this is just a monumental effort, so don't count on it just happening within a matter of days. This administration has done an excellent job of working swiftly to meet its ends. But as I said before, this criminal operation is so large and so massive and includes so many levels of different cover-ups that you can't fault them for not being able to immediately root out this corruption within a matter of months. It's just simply unrealistic. So moving forward, it's important to keep faith that this administration is actively trying to work towards doing the right thing. And in order to get there, we have to continue to support them. But if at any time these people show themselves to be a part of the corruption, it's up to each and every one of us to call out that corruption and call for new appointments. Now, I have no doubt that AG Pam Bondi, along with Kash Patel and along with Dan Bongino, are going to do an excellent job of rooting out some of this corruption, but at the expense of having to leave unprosecuted and unlitigated circumstances for the next administration to then take over. And hopefully, Donald Trump continues to be a badass and do the right thing, and JD Vance is the front runner for the president of the United States in 2028. And I have all the confidence in the world that he will do the right thing as well and follow in the gigantic footsteps of our current president. Moving on. Mexico turned over 29 cartel leaders this week in an effort to show legitimacy regarding our tariff negotiations. Now, while I'm not mad that they sent over 29 cartel leaders to be prosecuted and imprisoned, I am mad that it took them this long. It just goes to show that Mexico could have done this the entire time, but chose not to because they benefited from the racketeering and the profits that the cartel leaders in Mexico were bringing in at the expense of the lives of American citizens all over the country. And while this is a step in the right direction, this just goes to show the international corruption that expands far beyond our borders. The Mexican cartels are a blight on human civilization. They murder, they sell drugs, they destroy communities, and all for a profit. And for the longest time, the Mexican government shielded these pieces of shit in order to reap some of the benefits of those profits. Now, it's safe to say that these positions that are now vacant, now that they sent over these cartel leaders, will be swiftly filled by their underlings, and the corruption will just go on to continue. I just think that Trump needs to invade Mexico and destroy these organizations once and for all. These things are just like weeds. There is no bottom to the corruption. These things needed to be pulled out by the root so that they're not able to grow back. And while this is a step in the right direction, these tariffs need to move forward. Because the reality is that the cartels in Mexico absolutely own that government. And they will continue to exploit the U.S. to push criminality and destruction past the southern border. These people hate America, they hate life, and they have no regard for the flourishing of U.S. citizens. And they need to be done away with. Canada's pretty quiet this week. They haven't had much to say, except for that they support Ukraine. But their leader is also a globalist puppet, and he is just marching to his orders. No surprises there. Now, folks, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you for watching. It's really cool to see new people following my social media and engaging with me in the comments section. Whether you agree with me or whether you don't, I still appreciate when people are even open to having a conversation. It really keeps me motivated on making content and to keep improving my video editing skills so that I can bring you the best content that I can, and it really does mean a lot to me. So thank you. If you liked what you saw and you haven't already, please make sure to follow me on Rumble and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And make sure to like and comment so that I can reach more people. Make sure to follow me on X and on Facebook for real-time updates. I've been killing it on Facebook recently, and I post a majority of my political commentary over there, so make sure to check it out. It gets pretty juicy in the comments section. All support links and social media links will be in the description, and thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next week for week 7 of the Presidential Rewind.